So a while ago, I made a video critiquing actual Justice Warriors, trying to compare Rey with Anakin and Luke. If you want, I'll leave the link to the comment down below. But I was surprised with how much, fight back I got from my critique of his, I guess, his critique. It's one of the most, if not the most, disliked video on my channel, and I'm not butthurt. I'm actually excited. I thoroughly enjoy discourse, actual good debate. So this person's comment that I am going to be refuting in this video, I have absolutely no ill will towards you, Sebastian. None of my followers harass or bully or belittle this person or even make fun of his comments. I do not endorse that. But I do think that you are absolutely wrong, and hopefully I'll be able to prove that you are wrong, not with speculation and opinion, but fact, filmed fact in those videos or in those movies that you're trying to critique and say are similar. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. And I will be making points and then showing specifically where in the comment I'm talking about so that you can follow along a little bit and actually see his words, get his context. So the main point is that every main character in Star Wars isn't consistent, and that I need to be consistent with my rage, it's not outrage or rage, it's just a critique. But he goes on to state that Anakin and Luke Skywalker and all of their inconsistencies were just as bad as Rey's, and he begins with Anakin, specifically stating that pod racing can't translate, or it is difficult or almost impossible, or he doesn't understand how that can translate to flying a ship. He makes some equivalent about soccer and basketball, I believe. But the main point is, I made a statement that a Formula One driver transitioning to a pilot of a spacecraft or a ship would be similar to pod racing to a spaceship. And that point is absolutely wrong. The only reason why, and I apologize that I made that statement, that it is absolutely wrong, is that we are making both these claims that Formula One driver to spaceship is similar to pod racer to spaceship, or that it isn't similar, out of ignorance. Now, I don't say ignorance to insult or belittle. I'm saying it and using it in its actual definition, which essentially means we have no information to make the claims that we are making. So, why do I say that? Because no one on Earth has or has built a functioning, identical pod racer. Identical in every way. No wheels, it hovers. And it's exactly the same as Anakin's. No one on Earth has built a spaceship identical, exactly the same, functions exactly the same as the spaceship that he piloted in Phantom Menace. Absolutely no one in the world knows how those function in the Star Wars franchise other than George Lucas, period, and done. So how can we say whether something is similar or not, or how close to similar they are? Well, you would have to pilot one of those, which I've already stated, and we all know no one on Earth has, and you'd have to pilot another. And as I've stated, no one on Earth has. But somebody in Star Wars has. Anakin has. So he is, out of everyone that we know, the leading authority on whether these two things are similar or not. And what does he say? They are similar. I'm not just making that statement, and you can say, well, he's a kid, he wouldn't know, all you want. And I will get back to how similar they are, as we will find out from his first trek in the spaceship. But you are stating that it isn't similar based off of ignorance. You've never piloted either of those ships. He has. He has more authority on the say-so of how similar these things are. And how does this first flight go? Well, one thing that I've learned with all of this is that whenever I'm making a statement, I should not go just off of the knowledge that I know. I should not just look up the clip either. You miss the context. So I went back and I watched Phantom Menace, And I learned an amazing fact. Anakin Skywalker sucks at piloting a spaceship. Wow! A 12-year-old who believes that something is similar, maybe because the mechanics are, but in a battle, he sucks. What do I mean by that? Well, he accidentally starts the ship, figures out a little bit of the controls, then the autopilot kicks in and sends him off into space. While in the autopilot, he thinks it's going to kill him, so he turns it off. And guess what happens? He gets off the autopilot, he gets shot down almost immediately, trying to avoid getting hit, and he fails, crash lands into the landing bay of the main enemy ship, and accidentally destroys their main reactor, trying to shoot some of the droids that are surrounding his ship. We all know that those are accidents because when he starts up the ship, he says whoops, and when he blows up the main reactor, he says whoops. The only thing that he did other than crash his ship is fly in a straight line out of the landing bay. That is it. So for all the people that are saying, oh my gosh, this is the same as Rey outmaneuvering two trained pilots, it is not. She takes no hits, she takes no damage, she gets a little of a bumpy start, but other than that, she's outflying all of these trained guys. Not only that, but she fixes the ship that she has stated that she has never piloted, and to say that maybe she climbed into the ship, maybe she's fixed that ship before, that's all speculation. Anyway, she fixes the ship better than the person who knew the ship far longer, the original owner of the ship. So another statement that Sebastian makes is the autopilot is not sufficient, which hopefully I've established that the autopilot was the only thing keeping him from getting shot down. Let's review. Anakin accidentally starts up a ship. The autopilot sends him into outer space. He turns off the autopilot. He gets shot down, crash lands into a landing bay, accidentally shoots a reactor. That blows up, and with the little skill that he has, flies in a straight line outside of the landing bay. Yay, he's the best pilot ever, right? No, you would never say that. But let's say someone randomly climbs into a spaceship that they've never piloted before, starts it up, has a little bit of trouble at the beginning, but outmaneuvers two trained fighter pilots. You'd say that was skill. The question is, where'd she get that skill if she's never flown that ship before? And again, using no speculation, well, maybe no. The movie doesn't tell you, therefore that's speculation. So let's move on to Luke. Sebastian claims that he was one of the best fighter pilots and outperforms the other pilots when it comes to the Death Star battle at the conclusion of the first movie. You mean how everyone sacrificed themselves, drawing fire away from his ship?
They're in position. I'm going to cut across the axis and try and draw their fire.
Bailing him out. The fact that they showed that the Death Star would have trouble targeting the ships.
We count 30 rebel ships, Lord Vader, but they're so small they're evading our turbo lasers.
So technically, him being one of those ships, all that looks like he's the best fighter? At no point does anyone say he's outperforming anyone. At no point does it look like he's outperforming anyone. In fact, he gets saved twice. And again, he's shot a target like this before. People are sacrificing left and right for him, and as you said, he's never been in a battle, and guess what?
I can't shake it!
It shows. He gets shot. He needs help. And again, I bring up the claim that he's the best, not the claim that he made, but a claim that someone who has lived with him makes to a commanding officer that he is the best pilot in the Outer Rim's territory. And the commander, who would know better than us about piloting those ships, says he'll be okay, which means his skill is sufficient enough for him to survive in this battle, or do as well as others. That's not me making some random statement. That's in the film. Those are the scenes. Look it up. For these two characters, the things that got both of them through was luck, clear, obvious film-shown training or statements from other characters and sacrifices. And those are clearly shown in both of those movies. Go back and watch them. I highly suggest that you do. They're really good. Now, before I respond to the justifications for why she beat Kylo, Sebastian makes, I will not be using my own facts, but only the facts presented by the franchise up to that point. No speculation, no guessing. I won't justify speculation as an argument either. So, with that being said, let's begin. In the end, you claim a staff is the same as a sword. I specifically stated that the Formula One car is not the same as a ship. The reason why Anakin flying a pod racer to autopiloting, crashing, and accidentally winning is an argument, and a pole arm to a lightsaber isn't, is because one is measurable. People in our world are martial arts masters and can tell you that transitioning from a mastered weapon, like a pole arm, to an entirely foreign one doesn't meet with success. And the other is a foreign device you or I don't know how to use to another foreign vehicle you or I don't know how to use. Why? Because we know the actors for Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Darth Maul, they trained their butts off daily. With what? Similar weapons. Where in The Force Awakens does Rey state, or anyone state, that they are similar? That's the reason why I make the comparison from pod racing to a ship, is because someone who has used both states that they are similar. That's why I can say, oh, that makes sense. This is a foreign device. I don't know what you're talking about. I've watched people use pole arms. I've watched people use blades. They are not similar. Also, remember how I brought up Anakin's win was an accident? Rey's, in her fight with Kylo, is clearly not. Another claim that you make is Jedi don't fight like they used to. They just swing their swords and try to make them deadly now. So let's look at Kylo's masters to see whether they don't know how to fight like in the prequels. Snoke, we don't necessarily know where he got his training or if he was training him to use a lightsaber, so we can't gather anything from that. And then we have Luke Skywalker, who was trained by two survivors of the Clone Wars, one Obi-Wan, who was a master in several different styles, and Yoda, who was on the Jedi Council. You're telling me neither of them trained him in the ways that he is supposed to use a lightsaber? And then he fought and beat Darth Vader, who was another Jedi who was in the prequels, who had those skills. You're confusing death of an art style, like the death of the Jedi arts, with a lack of a good choreographer. The original movies did not have a martial arts choreographer. The prequels did. Also, Luke is a skilled fighter and not just trying to make his lightsaber deadly. I highly suggest you go back and rewatch the fifth movie and see what trying to make your weapon deadly does for Luke in that situation. Spoiler alert, it didn't end well. Kids that are Force sensitive can use the Force. My response? Not until the sequels came out. Anakin didn't learn how to pod race because he could use the Force. He was pod racing before he even knew what the Force was. In fact, he was piloting for years.
You're a pilot? Mm-hmm. All my life.
Luke Skywalker was the greatest pilot in the Outer Rim territory before he met Obi-Wan. And this is what the new movies have done with the Force. They've taken out an integral part of the lore. These things require training. Now mind tricks can be accomplished by anyone without any training. The message used to be, this mysterious thing we call the Force is strong in some, but training is required to harness and control it. It is a force of nature that only the strong of mind and will and courage are able to harness and take up the title of Jedi. It made Jedi a word that held some air of mystery and respect for a sacred craft, like a knight of honor. It's what made the Sith so terrifying for defying all of the rules and lore of the Jedi. But if it's treated like some mutation that everyone gets and requires no skill, why train at all? Why did Luke have to train with Yoda to control the Force? If it's just something you have that automatically can be tapped into without any skill or training, where is the journey? Where is the struggle? Kylo wasn't on top of his game. And if this was how he lost, then I would have no problem with that. But the movie makes a point to show that Rey is losing the entire fight up until one thing changes. And what's that one thing? Is it the point when Kylo stumbles in pain and she takes advantage on the opportunity? No, that actually doesn't happen at all. Is it when she manipulates him by stating that he murdered his father and he stops to take that all in, so she sees an opening and takes that advantage? No. The camera zooms into her face and she whispers, "The Force," closes her eyes, and pulls out skills with a weapon she's never used, calling on a power she doesn't understand or have training in. That is the point that the movie focuses on. It's her tapping into this inner force that she now has control over, whether it's the dark or the light side. That doesn't make sense with the original films. And sure, she was helped out by Finn. How'd that turn out for Finn? Ah, yes. Immediately trashed. So hopefully I've explained why I am being consistent with not my rage, but my critique of lore and continuity and good storytelling within the Star Wars franchise. Again, I have the utmost respect for Sebastian. None of this was said in ill will. It was just me trying to explain further why I think that Rey is just an example of poor writing as opposed to Luke and Anakin. Anyway, tell me what you guys thought in the comments down below. I'm sure that you will. And I will see you guys next time.